Howdy folks, in today's English video lesson, we're going to learn more vocabulary words with Professor Noam Chomsky. As always, I'll put the vocabulary with plenty of example sentences in the description if you would like to review them.
I might quote, if I can remember the wording, a comment by Winston Churchill about this. Churchill's bust is on George Bush's desk.
Okay, let's talk about the word bust. In this context, it refers to a statue, a sculpted or a cast representation of someone's head, shoulders, and upper chest. So he says that George Bush has this statue, the statue of Winston Churchill's bust.
Says it every day.
On his desk.
Churchill said that something like this, to place a man in prison without charge and without the judgment of his peers in a fair trial is in the highest degree odious.
Odious is a fantastic adjective for you to level up your English. It refers to something which is horrible, a person who is terrible. So it means extremely bad. Now, he is emphasizing the importance of a fair, a just trial. Let's hear that word again.
In prison without charge and without the judgment of his peers in a fair trial is in the highest degree odious and the foundation of all totalitarian governments, whether Nazi or communist. Churchill said that in 1943.
Noam Chomsky is emphasizing the fact that Churchill was on point. This was prescient. Prescient is a great adjective which refers to a comment, an idea that is able to give you a clear view of something that hasn't occurred yet. This person who makes the comment has deep insight into the situation. Prescient.
When he was opposing efforts to institute preventive detention for alleged intelligence purposes. And in 1943, Britain was in pretty dire straits.
When you are in dire straits, you are struggling in a desperate situation. To be in dire straits, that's how we use it. So he says that Britain was in dire straits. Let's hear this part again.
In governments, whether Nazi or communist. Churchill said that in 1943 when he was opposing efforts to institute preventive detention for alleged intelligence purposes. And in 1943, Britain was in pretty dire straits. It was under attack by the most vicious and murderous military machine in history, and its survival was not obvious.
Vicious. You could describe a comment using the word vicious. If a comment, a remark is vicious, it aims to attack someone very unfairly. But you could use the word vicious as well to describe a person or their attempts to deeply undermine someone.
Nevertheless, he took that position, which is correct. And he's right. What's now being proposed is, and in part implemented, is in the highest degree odious and the foundation of all totalitarian societies, whether Nazi or communist. And we should be deeply concerned about that.
When you implement an idea, you carry it out to implement a plan. That's another collocation that you may want to learn.
Here are some of the 98 books that Noam Chomsky has published over the last, I guess what we're talking about, almost 50 years. American Power and the New Mandarins, a new forward by Howard Zinn. This was 2002 when it came back out. There's one called World Orders, Old and New by Noam Chomsky. Remember the year this was out?
First published in 1994, and there's an expanded edition in 1996.
And here's another one, Deterring Democracy.
Deterring democracy. To deter is to delay something, or it talks about a factor that may prevent the development of something. It's a great word. Let's pronounce it together. Deter. Deter. Its noun form is deterrence. Deterrence. So he has covered different factors or influences that may prevent democracy from flourishing, growing, and developing.
It was a national bestseller. Can you still buy this one in the stores?
I don't know if it was a national bestseller. I doubt it.
That's what it says right up the top.
Well, you should know never to believe anything that's put by a publisher on a cover. That was 91, extended 92.
Most of these still in print?
Yeah.
Carlsbad, California. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I'm a military officer with 25 years of experience who's read Mark Twain's War Prayer. And I got a couple of quick questions for you. And I'd like to know whether or not you think it's perfectly natural for a country to protect its borders and guard its national interests, whether they be protecting the population against terrorism or securing economic interests. And in the case of radical Islamic terrorism, that we might have had to burst the terrorist bubble in the wake of a failure of diplomacy, and that wasn't necessarily our failure. Looking at their motive, intents, and consequences.
Motive is a driving factor. You are probably familiar with the word motivation. Motivation gives you energy, it gives you drive. Motive is a reason. It's kind of like a reason behind something. So let's see how Noam Chomsky deals with this question.
And that's the first part, if I could come back to you after that.
Well, should a country have a right to defend its population and its economy? Yeah, certainly. I don't think that's a question. I didn't exactly understand what you meant about the Islamic terrorism.
Well, given the war in Iraq, that we were over there perhaps in the face of radical Islamic terrorism.
No, there's no, look, that was a fabrication.
A fabrication is a fallacy, something which is manufactured artificially. It was a fabrication. It was a fabricated news story. Let's figure out more about what
There is no evidence whatsoever. I mean, Saddam Hussein's a horrible monster. Just as he was when he was supported by the United States, the people now in office in the 1980s. He was a hideous monster. Osama bin Laden is another hideous monster.
Hideous means very ugly. You could talk about a person or their actions using the word hideous, but you probably remember the word odious, and odious characterizes someone's lack of moral fiber. So two good words to talk about bad things and people.
But they're different monsters, and they hate each other. And there's no evidence whatsoever for any meaningful evidence of a connection between Saddam Hussein's horrifying regime and the networks like Al-Qaeda. They despise each other and have had no known connections.
To despise someone or something is to hate that thing or a person very much. Despise. Despise is a verb that you could use to talk about how you detest something, how you resent someone very much.
The only effect of the war in Iraq on terror is that it has, as predicted, increased recruitment for Al-Qaeda. So it's increased the threat of terror. Exactly as predicted by intelligence agencies in the United States and throughout the world and other specialists. But the idea that attacking Iraq had something to do with the war on terror is just mendacity.
Mendacity. Mendacity is a great word. It's a little formal, and it refers to lies, fabrication. Mendacious is the adjective. Anyways, I hope you've learned at least one word with my lesson today. Don't forget to check out the description and like this video if you think that what I'm doing on this channel is offering some value. Thank you so much.